Imagine sailing into an endless ocean. No maps you can trust, no idea what waits beyond the horizon, and believing that somewhere ahead, gold, spices, and the edge of Asia are waiting. This is not the story of Columbus. This is the story of John Cabot and his son, Sebastian, the explorers history almost forgot. Long before refrigerators, clean kitchens, or easy meals, people in Europe struggled with rough, tasteless food. Meat spoiled quickly, bread grew stale, and vegetables were plain and dull. To make their meals bearable, people depended on spices, pepper, cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg. These tiny grains of flavor were worth their weight in gold. They came from distant Asian lands, traveling slowly across deserts and mountains on the backs of camels, carried by long caravans of traders who risked heat, hunger, and bandits to reach Europe. In those days, few people understood where the spices truly came from. Maps were poor, books were rare, and the East was wrapped in mystery. But among the merchants who traveled farther than most was an Italian named John Cabot. Cabot was probably born near Genoa, the same region that produced Christopher Columbus. Like Columbus, he grew up listening to sailors' stories and staring at maps that showed more guesses than facts. Cabot traveled widely, first living in Venice and later settling in the busy English port of Bristol. Trade carried him far beyond Europe, so far that on one journey he reached Mecca, where he saw spice caravans arriving from lands farther east than anyone he knew could name. Standing among camels piled high with fragrant goods, Cabot asked the traders where the spices came from. Their answers fascinated him. Each caravan bought spices from another caravan that had come from even farther away. To Cabot, it felt like the world kept stretching eastward forever. That was when an idea took hold in his mind. If the world is round, why not sail west to reach the east? It would be like walking around a house to enter through the back door. While this thought burned in his heart, astonishing news reached England. A sailor named Christopher Columbus, sailing for Spain, had crossed the Atlantic and returned claiming he had reached India. Europe was stunned. People whispered that sailing west into the east was something more divine than human. When Cabot heard the news, his imagination caught fire. He later said, "A great flame of desire rose within him to do something memorable, something bold." Cabot approached King Henry VII of England with a plan to sail west, just as Columbus had done. The king agreed. After all, the ocean had already been crossed once, why not again? In May 1497, Cabot sailed from Bristol in a small ship with only 18 men. The sea carried him farther north than Columbus had ever gone. After weeks of cold winds and rolling waves, land appeared. On June 24th, Cabot stepped ashore, likely on what is now Cape Breton in Canada. He planted a cross and raised 2 flags, one for England and one for Venice. Though he did not realize it, Cabot had become the first European to see the mainland of North America, a year before Columbus reached South America. Cabot saw no people, but he found traps used by hunters. Certain he had reached Asia, he hurried home. He returned to England after only 3 months, proudly announcing he had found the lands of the Emperor of China. The king rewarded him with money and honor. Cabot, dressed in silks, was called the Great Admiral and made grand promises of islands and titles, promises that made some men dream themselves into nobility. But Cabot wanted more. He believed that if he sailed farther south, he would reach Cipango, the island Marco Polo had described, what we now know as Japan.
He was sure that spices, gold, and jewels waited just beyond the horizon. So the king funded a second voyage. This time, Cabot explored much more of the coastline, sailing far north and then south along what we now know as the eastern coast of the United States, reaching as far as North Carolina. He met indigenous people dressed in animal skins, using simple tools and a little copper. There was no gold, no spices, no great cities. Still, Cabot remained convinced he was sailing along the edge of Asia. His sailors told astonishing stories on their return, of seas so thick with codfish that ships could barely move, and of bears swimming out to sea to catch fish with their claws. Yet England slowly lost interest. Without gold or spices, the excitement faded, and so, quietly, John Cabot passed out of history, his final days unknown. But the spirit of exploration did not end with him. His son, Sebastian Cabot, had sailed beside him and inherited his love of maps and the sea. He became one of the most respected navigators of his age, serving both the kings of England and Spain. He believed deeply that a northern route to Asia could be found, and encouraged many expeditions in search of it. Even as an old man, Sebastian's heart still belonged to discovery. When a small ship set out on a new voyage to the northeast, he visited it with friends, shared food with the sailors, gave them gifts, and spoke to them with warmth and hope. Later that day, filled with joy at humanity's forward march into the unknown, the elderly explorer danced with the young, celebrating not riches found, but the courage to seek. And so, though John Cabot never reached the spice lands he dreamed of, he and his son helped open the door to a new world, one that would forever change history. If you enjoyed this story of forgotten explorers, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments.